Hello, history lovers, and all you curious folks out there who are interested in this fantastic mural wall behind me at Converge Media Studio. If it's Thursday, it's Throwback Thursday. And my name is Stephanie Johnson Tolliver. I am president at the Black Heritage Society of Washington State. Can you see the photo of the Boy Scout troop number 14? Was Scoutmaster James Washington Jr. This was in 1946. Not the way most will remember the legacy of James Washington Jr. He was a renowned sculptor, artist who made his home in Seattle, Washington in 1944 with his wife, Janie. They bought a home in Madison Valley and created a studio there for him too. I have a story to tell. James and Janie Washington lived across the street from my grandparents, and next door to my grandparents lived the grandparents of Joaquin Garrett. It was a vibrant Black community in the Madison Valley at that time. I won't date myself, but you know, it was the 1950s. I could hear what was happening behind the fence that sounded like somebody was hammering and pounding away at something. I had no idea that Mr. Washington was creating this fabulous work, this fabulous art, and it wasn't until years later that I understood what he was doing. I did know about Janie because Janie and my grandmother both baked for Mount Zion Baptist Church. Mr. Washington had several jobs before finding his way as an artist. He took art classes at the University of Washington and had artist friends who went on to be well known in their own right. Toby, Graves, Callahan, and others. In 1951, he took a life-changing trip to Mexico. This is where he met muralist Diego Rivera and was introduced to sculpting. He never looked back. James and Janie Washington were civically engaged and immersed themselves in the church life at Mount Zion Baptist Church. James also involved himself at CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality, and the NAACP. Janie became a nurse and inspired the spirituality that shaped her husband's work. Much of Mr. Washington's art is found locally in downtown Seattle, at Carolyn Downs Family Medical Center, and at Mount Zion Church. And recently, his Fountain of Triumph came back to the new development at Midtown at 23rd and Union. In 1992, the Washington home was designated as the City of Seattle landmark. James and Janie Washington willed that after their deaths, the home should become a cultural center and the studio should be available for future artists to hone their craft. Leading today at the James and Janie Washington Cultural Center with all her passion and respect for the Washingtons is Reverend Dr. Laverne Hall. On March 24th, the National Trust of Historic Preservation announced that the Washington Cultural Center would be recognized as a prestigious and historic site as important to celebrating the diversity of artistic legacy in our nation. So not just Seattle, but our nation. You can visit the Cultural Center by appointment. Check out their website for the details. If these walls could talk, you heard it here.